Don, I used to think that the appendix is useless, but now I'm hearing that the appendix actually does serve a purpose. So, which is it? Why, great question. It's true that for a long time scientists thought that the appendix didn't really serve a purpose. But a few years ago, a study showed that the appendix in fact plays an important role. It's a sort of hangout for useful bacteria needed to help us digest food. After a bad case of diarrhea, when most of the bacteria in our guts is washed out, the appendix sends a fresh batch in to take over. Right? And not only that, but a more recent study has found that the appendix has a long and storied history. It's been around in animals including kangaroos, rodents and apes for at least 80 million years. In other words, it's fairly common in nature. Why, now, it's true that in developed countries with modern sanitation, the human appendix has less to do than it once did. In those places, where diarrhea isn't a major problem, the appendix isn't called upon all the time to do its thing. That's why when people in the United States and other developed countries have their appendix removed, they don't seem to miss it. But in places where drinking water and sanitation aren't as safe, the appendix plays a larger role in keeping people healthy. Leaders must demonstrate their empathy through intentional words, actions, behaviors, and decisions. Here are 4 ways how. Number 1. Practice putting others first. Asking your team members "Is everything okay?" is a great start, but also make it a priority to get to know them as people, not just employees. Number 2. Create a safe space for sharing. People may be reluctant to open up if they feel they'll be judged or criticized. So, give an employee the space to share. Number 3. Don't assume others know how you feel. Regularly remind your team members that you care about them, understand their challenges, and want to help. Number 4. Listen more and talk less. When listening to someone, resist the urge to multitask or interrupt. Instead, give others your full and undivided attention, so you can truly listen to what matters most to them, and ask follow-up questions to make sure you understand. By choosing to lead with empathy, you'll foster a more productive, innovative, and inclusive environment where people feel valued. The men of the North Woods tribes were the hunters. The hunting season began in the fall and continued until midwinter. These expeditions frequently took the hunters away from the village for long periods of time: moose, deer, beaver, bear, and elk, with the animals sort large. Deer drives were common, and small animals were taken with snares, or the bow and arrow. Did the women ever go hunting with the men? The women often accompany their husbands on hunting parties. Their job was to take charge of the camps. Do you mean they just cook for the man? I thought the Native Americans had more of a system of equality over all men, and women shared the labor on hunting expeditions. Women basically supported the men whose job was to procure the game. On the other hand, women controlled other realms of life. For example, women managed all of the agricultural operations. Also, a woman headed each clan, and these women were respected for their role as keepers of the clan. Well, Alex, the National Association of Realtors is at least putting the champagne on ice. The industry group says the slight rise in sales for previously owned homes shows the housing market is finally stabilizing, which is the first sign of a recovery. Now, that of course is an interpretation of the numbers, Alex, and one that's coming from an organization known for being somewhat of a cheerleader for the housing market, since its members are made up of realtors who've been losing a lot of money in the slump. Now, for a more sober view, I talked to Wellesley housing economist Carl Case, and he says the slight uptick in sales hardly offsets the fact that numbers are down 20% from the year before. I think it's really important for young people not to feel restricted in their choices, and also to be aware of the choices that are available to them. Obviously, the media has an incredibly important role to play in that. I think we tend to talk about science as this big kind of monolith, but of course, actually, it's this beautiful multifaceted thing. There's almost something for everybody there. And there are so many different aspects of it. Somebody that's going to be attracted to working in biology might be a very different person from somebody who's attracted to engineering. I suppose it's about knowing the breadth of opportunities that are out there, and so anything that universities and broadcast media can do to make sure that those opportunities are visible. Why do we need more entrepreneurs right now? The entrepreneurs who create and run our businesses, who play by the rules, are in fact critical to our success as a nation. We need them especially today. Business, not government, will end this recession. Government must help by creating fair rules, sound monetary policy, and by protecting our fellow citizens in periods when they are jobless. We have to make way for the new entrepreneurial firms that will push us to frontiers of innovation. This winter has been rather cold. It almost feels like we're entering a new ice age. Now don't laugh. This statement isn't as crazy as it seems. Yes. Global warming is a hot topic these days, but more and more scientists are considering the possibility of global cooling occurring soon. This would result in the average temperatures on Earth dropping. It has happened in the past, and it will happen again in the future. Earth is warm now, but that's not always the case. In the past, large parts of the planet were covered in ice. We call these periods ice ages. Note the plural. There wasn't just one ice age. There have been several. During the recent past, we experienced the Little Ice Age. It lasted almost 500 years from around, say 1300 to 1800. The ice pack in the Arctic Ocean grew larger and moved south. Glaciers in the European Alps and on Greenland grew bigger and advanced southward. Temperatures dropped all over the northern hemisphere. Winters were longer, summers were shorter, and summer rains were heavier. There were numerous famines since the cold and rain frequently destroyed crops. Why did this ice age and others like it happen? One theory claims that Earth's orbit caused them. Earth orbit changes slightly over time, so the northern hemisphere receives less sunlight on those occasions. This reduces temperatures. It's possible that an orbital change caused the major ice ages. In case you're curious, the last such ice age happened around 20,000 years ago. How often does Earth's orbit change? No one knows for sure. Scientists estimated changes between every 20,000 to 50,000 years. There's also a second possible reason for global cooling. This relates to decreased solar activity. The appearance or lack of sunspots can affect temperatures here on Earth. During the Little Ice Age, there were significantly fewer sunspots. For instance, in one 30-year period, astronomers spotted a few dozen sunspots. Normally, they would have seen tens of thousands of them with less solar activity. Some believe temperatures on Earth decreased, thereby resulting in colder weather. The year 2020 has been a tumultuous one for educators. Hundreds of thousands of teachers across the globe had to get to grips with online platforms to deliver their lessons. Millions of students were stuck at home doing their lessons via websites like Zoom. This has created an unprecedented transformation in education as technology has taken center stage. The quality of education differed around the world according to the quality of internet connections, the level of preparedness of teachers, and their competence in engaging with the technology. It also depended on what kind of devices students had at home. Many students were deprived of lessons because they had no computer, tablet, or smartphone. If Wikipedia had been around a couple hundred years ago, we probably would have had an article that says that the sun revolves around the earth because that was what we understood to be true. We no longer understand that to be true thanks to advances in science and physics, but if tomorrow we were to wake up and learn that in fact time being relative really does append the way that we think about the world, Wikipedia would have to evolve in order to describe that. So we're not really in the business of truth or facts. We're in the business of what is known, and what has been determined through consensus, scientific consensus, or otherwise. And I think that actually provides some clarity on how to understand what information you're looking at. One thing that I think is really unique about Wikipedia is there's only one version for the whole public. There's no feed that's curated for you or for me. We all are looking at Protons are finally transferred to the LHC both in a clockwise and an anticlockwise direction, where they are accelerated for 20 minutes to 6.5 TeV. Beams circulate for many hours inside the LHC beam pipes under normal operating conditions. For each collision, the physicist's goal is to count, track, and characterize all the different particles. The charge of the particle, for instance, is obvious since particles with positive electric charge bend one way and those with negative charge bend the opposite way. Also, the momentum of the particle can be determined. Large Hadron Collider, LHC, is the world's largest particle accelerator lies in a tunnel. The LHC is a ring roughly 28 kilometers around that accelerates protons almost to the speed of light before colliding them head-on. Protons are particles found in the atomic nucleus, roughly 1,000 millionth of a meter in size. The LHC starts with a bottle of hydrogen gas, which is sent through an electric field to strip away the electrons, leaving just the protons. Electric and magnetic fields are the key to a particle accelerator. This course provides students with an in-depth understanding of the exciting disciplines of politics and international relations. Students will learn about the workings of political institutions in countries around the world and explore the complex field of relations between nations. Topics in governance, public policy, public administration, national security, and border control ensure that students receive a broad and current education in the range of issues that are covered under the label of politics and international relations. Students will undertake 4 compulsory units and 2 majors, one in politics and international relations and the other in governance and policy. They will also choose an elective major from a wide choice of options including political communication, international studies, international business, and national security studies. In addition to acquiring specialist knowledge and competencies in politics and international relations and commerce, students will graduate with a range of generic skills such as critical thinking, enhanced communication abilities, problem solving, and strong capacities to work with others. They will also develop ethically based and socially responsible attitudes and behaviors. Why just burning a food item provide information about its value as a portion of food? The nutritional value of food can be measured on many different scales. The most basic measurement scale is the free energy content of the food. In other words, how much energy is released when chemical bonds within the food are broken. The energy content of food is measured in weight/calories, the amount of kinetic energy required to raise the temperature of 1 milliliter of water. 1 degree food is burned under controlled conditions, breaking chemical bonds and releasing free energy. The burning is chemically similar to the breakdown of food in cellular respiration. All over the process occurs much more quickly and in a less controlled fashion. During a connection, calorimeter can measure the energy in food but cannot measure the digested energy of what we have. The students should visit the lecture hall behind the building. Competition for spaces in this course is fierce. A lot of agricultural workers came to the East End to look for alternative work.